Okay, here we go. Yes. Happy Thanksgiving, one and all. Yes. We are going to be joined by attorney Stephanie Murphy is going to be joining us to walk through. Hi there, Janet Dwyer. Yes, what a night last night. That is exactly right. Folks, happy Thanksgiving, everyone. I don't know. I think we're going to be active. There's Chris. He does a great job on, on our TikTok channel. There's Bill. Yes, good afternoon. Happy Thanksgiving, one and all. I know. There's the big development. Now, we do have some news on the case in Central Falls. I'm going to hint at it, but we're going to have a posting on the website, depetro.com, coming up after 2 o'clock. Very busy morning. We'll see. I think I will be, I believe we're going to be live later tonight. I don't know. Not riding, but I think we're going to be live. I think so. I know. Well, that's Cheryl. That's Cheryl. But we are going to be joined by attorney Stephanie Murphy. Yep. Happy Thanksgiving, one and all. I think she should be fine. Whenever she pops in. Whenever she pops in, she'll pop in. And we're going to begin. Yep. Okay. Pete is ready to go. Folks, we're going to begin right now at 1:06. First, I want to wish everyone a very happy Thanksgiving. As Lynn Miller says, happy Thanksgiving, one and all. Yes, and I hope folks, like many of you, I mean, I love Thanksgiving. Of, you don't have the rush of the gifts. Boy, they do start earlier and earlier with Christmas. But as like many of you, yes, thank you, Felicia. It was good to talk to you as well. It was, and I'm going to touch on that. I'm glad Felicia's saying that. It does help. It does help to talk about it. So I'm so glad to hear you say that, Felicia. And it was nice to hear you and your boyfriend laugh. But folks, I'm going to, again, it's not, I am wishing you happy Thanksgiving, as Bendy says. You don't have to say, I want to wish you. I am wishing you happy Thanksgiving. And I just, like many other people, you hope that everyone can put aside the politics for one day to just put that all to the side. And I like it. It's all about the meal. It's all about just relaxing, enjoying family, and then a lot of people obviously come into town and visiting people. Many years we used to do a St. Paul's reunion the night before, but again, I want to know. I want you to know I am very thankful for so many of you that make a point to tune in. And what's also interesting is, I mean, what's interesting to me is our platforms just keep getting bigger and bigger. So I'm very, very thankful for that, and thankful to all of you and the people that support the show that become subscribers. I'm thankful for all the stars that people send and all the different adventures that we have. And so very, very thankful. And despite all the division, we do have a lot to be thankful for um, in our country, and better days ahead for the state, hopefully. Thank you, Bendy. Yes, there's our friend Bendy, who I need to talk to Bendy because I need his advice on an upgrade of a laptop. But that's for another time. But I am, folks, with all the media sometimes is so negative. We live in a state. I was out um, earlier. I was out actually all morning, and I wasn't sure if we are going to talk to Stephanie, so I apologize. But when you're out and you're already wearing a hat, and then so anyhow, but I want to get to some of the news that we do have about this. But happy Thanksgiving, one and all. Bendy, that was nice with the big blue bug, folks. It's not easy that we live in a state and area of the country where they are attacking a president who who's a God-fearing man who's doing everything in his power to try to do the right thing. And right now, with our situation in the state, you hope that I mean, I pray like, I pray deliver us from evil, because that's what we're dealing with locally. We are. And you're really seeing it manifest itself to me in the public schools, without question. So, and yes, thank you, Cindy. We continue to be very, very grateful. We have to. There's better days ahead. There's other states that are thriving. I'm hoping our area of the country, Rhode Island and Massachusetts, I'm hoping in the year ahead that people will follow the lead of the Holy Spirit and make better decisions. We are, in many ways, we're dealing with almost a hostage situation. We have people that are in charge of us, but they certainly don't represent our views and thoughts in any way. So I'm hopeful that in the new year we're going to have a change in that. But Thanksgiving is a time to give thanks and especially enjoy family and give thanks to our Savior and God. And I hope all of you enjoy tomorrow. Now, we will be speaking with attorney Stephanie Murphy. I want to remind you, I'm thankful for the Cowesett Inn, 226 Cowesett Avenue, West Warwick. Remember what I say, lunch, dinner. I was there Saturday. I was there with Carol and Eric and Carlos, and the place was packed. The Cowesett Inn was packed. It was great. Plus, they now have the coffee at Cowesett. So I'm thankful for the Cowesett Inn. I'm thankful for the menu that they have. I give thanks that the Cowesett Inn has that large bar area. I'm very grateful and thankful that the Cowesett Inn, 226 Cowesett Avenue, West Warwick, that they have such a large restaurant where you can spread out. So I don't hear someone at the table next to me chewing their food. I'm very thankful for that. The Cowesett Inn, 226 Cowesett Avenue, West Warwick. I also give thanks on this Thanksgiving Eve for the day before the big day, Propane Plus. Very, very thankful for our friends at Propane Plus. The Johnson family, call them 401-885-4209, and in Massachusetts, 508-252-3359 for Propane Plus. All your heating, cooling, residential or commercial, you can depend on Propane Plus. Now, I mentioned we are going to talk with our legal expert, attorney Stephanie Murphy. We're going to focus on the Central Falls case, and we're going to focus on the Rogers case. I want to echo that a little bit. I recognize a lot of people want details on Central Falls, and I do have some new details on Central Falls, and they're not good details. I also want to touch on Channel 10. According to Channel 10 reported that Channel 10 said a relative told them that Erica was pregnant, Erica Bader with Central Falls, when she was killed. I'm telling you, Channel 10 is the only one reporting that. The aunt that told them that, I've never spoken to her. I can't get anybody else to confirm that. Was she pregnant in the past? Possibly. But I want to be very clear. Now, again, Channel 10 went with the aunt. We all know certain members of the family are a little loony, but Channel 10 went with it. I can't find anyone else to back that up. I can tell you police are not saying that. I don't understand. They decided to go with that for whatever reason. Maybe they felt, oh, well, the aunt is saying it. I don't know what to make of it. I also want to remind people that the father and the stepmother, they led that protest against the Central Falls police. Remember that on that Saturday night? I found that to be a little bizarre. Sometimes the father pops into the chat. We may be on tonight. I don't know. It's very challenging for me to do back-to-back nights on CF. Very difficult. I also want to remind people that Pawtucket police were really strong in that investigation. What I also like is that the two departments work side by side with that case. And I believe because it's not an easy case. So what I'm going to unveil, yes, we will know if anyone has additional charges. That's exactly right. Channel 10 reported it, and I know they say the news leader and the team you trust, but Channel 10 is also encouraging people to download Channel 6. Where have you gone, Doug White and Jim Taricani? We have been so far ahead of the curve on the Central Falls Erica Bader case. That's the first I've heard. Now, again, I have heard she was pregnant in the past, but we had a friend that then said, but that she, something happened and she, and I hate getting that personal about it, but when someone is, or a news outlet, I should say, is putting that out there, but we don't have that. But Eric is exactly right. That thank you, Cindy Ott. That I think, and we'll ask Stephanie Murphy that. I think if that were the case, I don't know what to make of that allegation. We knew that Kylie in Rehoboth was pregnant, but she wasn't far enough along, so then they didn't charge her for Greg Groom. They didn't, charge him, for the death of the unborn child. I think because in Massachusetts, if it's under 12 weeks, and just to put this in perspective, with Scott Peterson, the famous case on the West Coast, where he killed his pregnant wife, Lacey Peterson, and their unborn child, I think she was close to 9 months pregnant, if not 8. She may have been 9 months pregnant, right around there, 8 or 9 months pregnant. So world of difference. Again, I don't want to debate it. If people are upset about it, you could, in Massachusetts, you could lobby the law there. In Rhode Island, they could lobby it here. But I'll ask Stephanie. I think if that's the case, they may have released that. But just to be clear, because someone mentioned it yesterday, we haven't seen anything about it. What I'm going to reveal coming up is, and if you check out, you see on the screen details on DePetro.com. Oh, they're talking. Oh, the 5 are talking. Remember, there's 8 charged, only 5 with murder, and they're starting to talk. So and this is embarrassing. It is embarrassing. It's actually even embarrassing for me to even mention this. But anyone that has been watching these live streams and watching the coverage we've done on this, no one would confuse this crowd. I could put that picture up. No one would confuse them with elite, intellectual elites, to put it mildly. No one would say, boy, that's really surprising. They seem like such a well-adjusted crowd. I mean, they are, they're not exactly, well, we've talked about it, but my point is, of the Central Falls crowd, that, and no one has this, by the way, but I'm going to have a more detailed explanation of it sometime this afternoon, and I'll put it on the website, DePetro.com. There they are. The one in the upper right-hand corner, is not charged with murder. That is Chris. Someone sent me a message that her son went with him to Monster Truck. So she agrees, oh, okay, he's going to drive, and he takes the son to Monster Truck. So you would think, that's right. No Ivy Leaguers in that crew. No one's attending a Mensa meeting. So the guy in the right-hand corner, for those that are watching, and we're live on YouTube and X and Facebook, but from what this woman claimed, now again, I don't know exactly, but she claims her son agreed to go, and this individual, so we're going to Monster Truck. They're all excited. So he basically drove 100 miles an hour to get from wherever, Pawtucket Central Falls to, at the time, maybe the Dunkin' Donuts Center or whatever we're calling it these days. Yes, they are not. No, I don't think they're attending. No, they are not members of Mensa. Not that I know of. But and even in the breakdown lane, and you know what's interesting about something like that is just it's an element of like, hey, dude, what's the rush? I'm so excited to go. I'm going to drive 100 miles an hour on 95 to go to Monster Truck. I want to remind you about Marin, Barrett, and Murphy. It is the day before Thanksgiving. A number of people are going to be arrested over the next several days. Many people tonight. Maybe call Marin, Barrett, and Murphy, Rhode Island Criminal Defense Experience. Your fight becomes their fight. 401-228-8271. Marin, Barrett, and Murphy. Don't ask your brother-in-law. Don't ask your next-door neighbor. Don't wander around. Don't contact me. I have people contact me. What should we do? My brother got arrested last night. They're looking for him. Listen, I follow a lot of the law. I've covered a lot of cases. I know a lot about the law, but I'm not going to give him a free consultation. I'll tell you who'll give him a free consultation is Stephanie Murphy. 401-228-8271. We are going to talk to her. Yes, we know that. Now, but I have information of the 5 or the 6, because he was in on it. But it's my information of the 5 that are charged with in fact murder. Chris, who's on the screen in the upper right-hand corner, he is not charged with murder, and Cheryl and Jojo are also not charged with murder, but conspiracy and failure to report a death. But I'm going to have more details, but believe it or not, they actually... That's right. You don't want to miss them singing the national anthem. They actually, this is so frightening, they actually tried to stage it as a suicide. You haven't heard this anywhere else. You haven't heard this. You go right now. You can leave, go to channel 1012, the Journal. Do you know this crew, who would try to do that? This crew would. They tried to stage it to look like a suicide. I also want to touch on something. Felicia, who was on, I saw her in the chat just a short time ago, and she was on last night. I want to address this because there's this woman, what is this laughing? And we're not mocking. We're not mocking. We are talking about a serious subject, obviously, and we have dedicated more time to it than anyone. But that doesn't mean I sit here and sob and be, doom and gloom. There's parts of this. Okay, at the end, this should be on Erica. There's nothing more to be said about her. Now it's on the individuals involved. Someone was posting that. What are you laughing for? Because part of it is funny. And when we talk about it this long, we're not mocking the whole thing. So, but I'm not going to sit here. Who would watch that? I wouldn't watch that. What, I'm supposed to be sitting here sobbing? Stop talking about them. Talk about Erica. What are you talking about? Now it's a legal case. Misguided. Scram. What? Listen, the sign is out in front of the store. How many times do I have to explain it? No hag bags allowed. Last night, so what? Listen, the equipment was malfunctioning a little bit. People didn't have great Wi-Fi. We learn as we go along. Sometimes it's funny. Sometimes it's not funny. Sometimes people say funny things. I'm not going to sit here. It doesn't have to be, I got to watch my language, doom and gloom the whole time. There's parts of this that are entertaining. Some lady was putting that. What is this laughter? Listen, Felicia's husband, he got fired yesterday. His boss calls him in. That is the stepfather to Joanne. Oh my God, my daughter's arrested. She's charged in all this. The day can't get any worse. And his boss says, well, hold my beer. Let me see if I can make the day worse. You seem a little distracted. Yeah, my daughter just got arrested, and she's not out on bail. What do you want to see me about? Oh, that's too bad. How long have you been working here, not counting today? You don't think the day could get worse? Now you're fired, and then loses his job. So we're not, we're not. There she is. We're not mocking what happened. We're after a period of time, as we're talking about it. Yes, that's exactly right. Just like Jimmy Buffett said. So I think, and again, there are certain individuals you can seek out. Like, listen, the whole thing with Kylie, yeah, it is terrible, but there's parts of that were pretty entertaining with Mama Bear and the Frank Kylie. Mama Bear, Kylie, what you need to do is go stay across, the whole thing, parts of it, and were kind of comical. And if people want just, we're supposed to be crying and sobbing, and I'm supposed to be speaking in a serious tone, you have stumbled onto the wrong page. I don't know what else to tell you. I want to tell you what else I'm thankful for. ServPro of Providence. I hear from so many people that say, well, thank you for telling me about ServPro. They're fast, they're thorough, they're professional. ServPro of Providence, 401 941 5500. When disaster strikes, you can depend on ServPro of Providence, 401 941 5500. Fire, if you have a fire, you're going to have fire damage. You're also going to have smoke damage. They're going to put it out. You're going to have water damage. You have a lot of water, you're most likely you would get mold. Call ServPro, 401 941 5500. ServPro Providence. Happy Thanksgiving to everyone from ServPro. And also happy Thanksgiving to everyone from Watson Materials. Call them, 401 885 0600. Watson Materials. Enjoy your outside. 401 885 0600. 401 885 0600 for Watson Materials. Happy Thanksgiving from Watson Landscape Lighting, Pavers, Retaining Walls, Natural Stone, Cobblestone. I'm thankful for Watson Materials. Now, I do believe we're going to be joined by our legal expert, attorney Stephanie Murphy. And yes, laughter can be good. And sometimes it can break things up a little bit. I don't know. I don't know if we're going to be live tonight. I have to figure it out. I do have family coming into town. Yes. And so we'll see. I don't know about that, and I don't know about some of the. Yeah, that's right. Oh my bear. But I do have details. In when you have this number of people, as I have said, I think you are going to see some. Well, already the information I have is because someone is talking. So, and I'm not just trying to promote it, but I then realize that many times if I say something, then we still just get people that don't listen and say, what happened? I'm new. Oh, just came in. What did he say? Blah, blah, blah. So it may be easier if I just write it up and post it, which I think I'm leaning towards. And then you can read about it. But the other story is this Rogers story. I wanted to mention, we had, for those that listen to the radio, yeah, that's right, the radio show. I appreciate that, Henry B. Now, I want everyone to see this. See, Henry B. I am live, and Henry B. Chafee is posting things and in the chat. There are people that accuse me of being this account. I listen, he's brilliant. He's a friend of mine, but it's not me. It's not, it's not me. It's a separate person. So, but we do get that from time to time. So, but Dan McGowan's column about the hazing going on in the Rhode Island high schools, it's the first time. Oh, good. Here's Stephanie. that we've heard that. But let's bring her on, folks. She is our legal expert and joining us on this oh, here we go. Thanksgiving Eve. It is attorney Stephanie Murphy. Stephanie, first of all, happy Thanksgiving to you. I'm very thankful we get to hear your expert legal opinion on this and get to chat with you every week. We have two big stories that have really taken over Rhode Island. I want to start with the Central Falls story, and that is eight different individuals charged. Not everybody charged with murder, but this is, I don't recall seeing a case of this nature. I think you'd have to go back to maybe some of the gang cases, Latin cake things and things like that. But this business of kidnapping, murder, conspiracy, you don't see a lot of that. I'm very anxious to hear your thoughts, and I have some questions as well.
Yeah, John, you're absolutely right. It's been a while since we've seen so many people charged with murder. A lot of times we see accomplices or co-defendants, but maybe they just have a lesser charge. There's an A defendant, meaning the main person. But in this case, there's a substantial number of people charged with the murder, the kidnapping, and everything like that. So the police, through their investigation, must have found that these people had, a role in it. And like we talk about too, through the conspiracy theory and stuff like that, you don't have to be the one who actually did the killing in order to get charged with murder. We do see that all the time. You're part of the plan, the scheme, everything. Then you can get charged with murder even if you weren't the one who actually committed the murder. So I think that's what's happening here. And then there was people maybe after the fact or before the fact that may have contributed to this awful crime. So I think that's what you're seeing here.
Stephanie, if you could also touch on, I mean, it's one thing to get charged with a murder and it could maybe be pled down to manslaughter, but boy, the conspiracy and the kidnapping, we don't see a lot of that.
Yeah, we really don't, especially, and like gang related stuff, you kind of see that, or, organized crimes, you'll see, the conspiracy with a bunch of different people and a trail. But this is kind of unique given the broad range of the different people charged. It doesn't, it's not a gang, it's nothing like that. So it's really a unique kind of experience with so many people charged, and then some people charged, with lesser. But the people charged with murder were all held without bail, and they're being held, and the other people got surety bail that was set.
Now, the ones being held without bail, is that something that you think could change at a future bail hearing?
It really could. So you do have a right to a bail hearing. Typically, on capital cases, a defendant's held without bail when they first appear. And then what happens is you have conferences either in district court or superior court, depending if it was a 5A petition up to superior court. But you can have a bail hearing. You can also negotiate different things. In bail in the state of Rhode Island is a two-tiered system. So the first part of it, tier one, the state has to meet is that they have, that they can prove the case and that there's probable cause, for the arrest and everything like that. But tier two is basically on whether or not you're a flight risk and everything like that. So there's times where the state will maybe recommend home confinement or something like that. So some of these defendants could possibly get it, but typically in a murder case, you do not see bail being set. Only after a bail hearing with the state's failure to meet their burden at that point would you see bail get set on a murder charge.
Now, Stephanie, what about the three that they're not charged with murder, but they're still, from what I understand, I think at least two of them are still locked up. But they're not facing a murder charge, but they're still facing very serious charges.
Yeah, they're very serious charges that when you add up and make it all come together, I mean, on a murder, you can get life with parole, without parole, or the lesser included that we talked about last week. And for the other charges, I mean, they can really add up, kidnapping and stuff like that, that can get added on and the sentences can run, not concurrently, but consecutive. So even with lesser included charges, they're very serious charges. And you have a person who, died as a result of these actions. So there's some serious time that every single one of these defendants is facing.
Now, as far as the kidnapping, normally when I see that, that is dealt with in federal court. Is it possible, based on these charges, could this group also face federal charges?
They could. You typically on like murder and like crimes of violence and stuff like that, unless there's, a tie to something that federally, such as, carjacking, moving across state lines, stuff like that. I typically, would think that this case would stay in state court, but there's always a possibility that some of the federal laws could get invoked and there could be federal charges. But I imagine in this case that it would stay in state court unless they have some information about, different states being involved and crossing state lines and stuff like that.
I've learned, number one, I believe police have quite a digital footprint with the phones. I also have learned that some of these individuals were going in and having very long conversations with police at the police station, possibly saying very incriminating things. You and I talk about a number of different cases. I'll be honest. I was a little surprised at the rapid nature and track that this took, because something of this magnitude, to me, it wouldn't have been surprising if we didn't hear anything until sometime into the new year. Oh, we lost Stephanie. Okay, all right. I'm sure she'll come right back. Sure she will come right back. No, they're very serious charges, especially when you add everything onto it. I'm not exactly sure what happened. So, but we'll many times. Okay, there she is.
Sorry
Okay,
about
not a
that.
problem, and she's back.
You're saying, you're
No,
saying
quite
about
a
the conversations with the police is the last part I heard.
yes. Yeah. What about that? I am hearing long conversations sometimes. Uh, you know, 3 hours, no attorney. Maybe they're thinking they're going to talk their way out of it. But you and I talk about different cases. I was saying I'm surprised at the rapid nature that this took, because I thought it would have been very conceivable that this may have laid dormant until sometime in the new year in January.
Yeah, I did too. But once I started to hear about some cooperation and stuff like that, I think that makes it move a lot faster. If the police are getting kind of stonewalled and not getting any answers, I think that takes some time for them to subpoena records and stuff like that. But if individuals are offering information or offering them cell phone records or communications or, talking with them, I do think that really does help to speed up the information that the police can get in order to get different arrest warrants for different people.
Is this a situation also, if someone is looking to get a better deal for themselves, this would be the time to start to cooperate with the police, as they say the train is leaving the station?
Yeah, I mean, I think in the beginning is always the best time. If you have information and can help the police, I think is always the best time. But there's times throughout the course of an investigation where, there's different opportunities, as we've heard about in the past, for different people to have a talk with the police or gather more information and stuff like that. So I wouldn't say, that everything's done at this point. I think there's always room for cooperation with maybe some of the lesser included people to cooperate with the police in order to kind of help themselves. But even if you cooperate with the police or want to, I strongly suggest contacting an attorney and having an attorney present with you. I've had clients who went in to give information and walked themselves into much more serious charges because they didn't have an attorney with them at first. So it's a lot easier, get an attorney, get somebody right away, go in with you. And that can also help aid the conversation, and the attorney can help you present the evidence in the best way to try to benefit you however they can.
Stephanie, we do have a family member who is in the chat. Her family member is one of the three that is could post a bail. Could you just touch on what could, they're out of state, but what could they do to get? She's one of the three that are not charged with murder. Joanne, what could they do in order to get her bail?
So bail would have been set at the by the court when she appeared at district court or he appeared at district court. So bail in Rhode Island is 10% of what is set. So if it's set at 30,000 with surety, the family would have to post $3,000, or they could contact a bail bondsman, and the bail bondsman would charge the family a fee that they would never get back. But the bail bondsman could come up with the money. If the family still can't afford it, then their attorney or somebody can file a motion to reduce bail after, some time passes, and try to get bail at a more reasonable place where the family could afford. So there's a bunch of different things they could do.
If they contacted you, could you put them in touch with a bail bondsman?
Yeah, absolutely. There's a lot of very good bail bondsmen in the state that will, help out different people. They charge a much
Okay.
smaller fee than what's owed. So yeah, absolutely. Give me a call and I can point them in the right direction.
Okay. And Felicia, I will have the number in the chat. Now, Stephanie, also, we have this disturbing story out of Rogers, and it started with one student arrested, then two students arrested, now four students arrested. And what makes this different to me is that there are different laws and penalties potentially, even though they're juveniles, but that kick in when you have apparently you have a special needs student is the one that they were assaulting and so forth. So what can you tell us about that?
Yeah, so in family court or with, any situation, these kids are juveniles. So if the case is handled by family court, there's a bunch of different things that come into play in terms of the punishment. Family court tries not to be punishment driven, but more, rehabilitative and trying to make sure that this never happens again. So if it's kept in family court and not moved to adult court for any reason, then family court is a spot where you can try to, get the juvenile some help, some understanding, kind of correct behavior so that this never happens again. If any of the charges go to adult court, then, they're facing, more serious penalties that can stay on their record for a long time. In the juvenile system, it's a little bit different in terms of the family court has jurisdiction until you're about 19 years old. You also have the training school that kids could be sent to, or different group homes to have, kids get any help that they need to. So it's two different systems depending on the charges.
This is difficult. The potential for some of these students to maybe be charged as adult. You know what else I find troubling, because I have been in touch with one of the parents reached out to me that said, what are they supposed to do? They're in a school setting, they're being asked questions. When a teacher, principal, coach is asking you, you're supposed to answer the questions. You can't just sit there silent. And suddenly that could impact the case against them.
Yeah, absolutely. So any statement given at school, any statement given to anyone, even to a friend, can always come back and be used against you and stuff like that. So even in any situation, it's hard for students to say to like a supervisor or coach or something like, "Hey, I want my parents here," but it's really the right thing to say. I don't think a juvenile would say, "Hey, I want an attorney," but "Hey, I want my parents here," or "I want my parents and an attorney here," or something like that. So my advice to anyone, if someone's asking you questions, and even if you did no wrongdoing, but something could get twisted around, or you witnessed something and you want to make sure you're okay, get your parents involved. Your parents will reach out to an attorney and make sure everyone's protected. But there's a nice way to decline, answering questions until your parents get there and stuff like that. And that's really what, kids need to do in the situation.
Yeah, actually, it was the aunt of one of the players. Excuse me, the aunt of one of the players. She had two questions. Number one, I think I know the answer, but he didn't give permission to be filmed when they were assaulting the special needs student. Does that matter that he didn't give his permission for it to be filmed?
Not really is a short answer. I mean, you can try to file a motion to suppress at a later point and stuff like that, but there has to be a legal argument to of why it would be, suppressed and stuff like that. Nowadays, as we always talk about, there's videos everywhere, and you never give really permission anymore to get filmed and stuff like that. So it would be a motion to try to suppress that evidence, but that would really be used, at trial or at something like that. Most family court hearings won't go to a trial, but if they do, you could try to suppress that from the judge seeing it. In all honesty, there's not jury trials in family court. So it's a little bit different in family court how the evidentiary rules would work.
The other question the aunt had was if one of the players on the football team at Rogers said something to one of the coaches, and then the coach said it to the police, but then the player didn't say it to the police, could that still be used against him?
Yeah, it would come down to the rules of evidence and stuff like that, whether or not what the person said was an excited utterance or, an admission against interest. It all depends on the circumstances that it was said. You can make an objection for hearsay and stuff like that, but that's really something that would be determined at the trial level or a motion to suppress. I think right now, maybe the argument would be, oh, he may have said something to the coach, but it wasn't exactly how the coach paraphrased it or something like that. There's a bunch of arguments you could make now, short of a motion hearing or, try to explain what was said or how it was said in a different way. But that's why we have rules against hearsay information. But there are a lot of exceptions to the hearsay rule, and those could come into play for facts like this.
Yeah. You know what I find interesting before we go to Murphy's Law? This is the second example that just in recent weeks. First, we had the Smithfield incident with the football team. Now, Rogers, I think it is an interesting dynamic where if you have a juvenile out on the streets and the police approach them, under the law, they don't have to say anything. You have the right to remain silent. You don't have to incriminate yourself. But in the guys in the hierarchy in the chain of command within a team or a school specifically, the principal is asking you a question, and it would take a very special individual to be able to say, principal or coach, I refuse to answer that question under the grounds that could be incriminating. I think I think that's interesting, and I wonder if some of these, I don't want to go on too long, but if some of these schools need to recognize when they say we're going to investigate, they could be going into an area that ultimately they don't have the authority to compel someone to give them information, is what I'm
Right,
trying to say.
absolutely. Right. And you can absolutely try to get that suppressed under those grounds and stuff like that. So I think every situation is unique. You have to look at the situation, who's asking the questions, where, when, and why they're asking the questions, who's doing the investigation and stuff like that. But, there's a reason why the police do a lot of these investigations and not schools, for those reasons, so that any evidence they get, could be used or admitted if needed to be. But yeah, the school doesn't have you sign a rights form or anything like that. So it's a very, different sort of argument that could be made.
Yeah, because sometimes I have heard from either the parent or one of the relatives or whoever, and they say, "Oh, he got scared, and the principal, teacher, coach, whoever, they were yelling at him, and so he just blurted it out." But I don't know. I think that's tricky, folks. It's time for Murphy's Law. This is a story that our legal expert attorney Stephanie Murphy has found. And Stephanie, what do you have this week?
It's not so much a story, but just to make a public announcement about drinking and driving tonight and this weekend and stuff like that. I think this is really the busiest weekend that we have as criminal defense attorneys, with everybody out on the roads, celebrating. I know Wednesday night's a big night. So kind of just in terms of, if you find yourself in a spot, had a drink or got pulled over, there's a way to react, and there's, a right way to do things, and that's to respect the police. Call an attorney, call our office immediately. We're available 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. But also, don't incriminate yourself. You have a right not to incriminate yourself. And it goes to, a DUI stop and stuff like that. So there's a very polite way not to incriminate yourself with still being respectful to the police department. I mean, the police are trying to make the roads safe this holiday, and they're doing their job by pulling over people who aren't driving safely. So I just remind people to don't incriminate yourself. Give us a call if you have anything. And just, there's going to be a lot of cops out there this weekend, working hard to make sure the roads are safe. So I've talked about DUI stops before, and just, keep that all in mind, and I would have a much better job if, there wasn't a bunch of statements and incriminating evidence, that shows whether or not the person was drinking and driving. So, be respectful, and, give us a call or get an attorney if you find yourself in that situation this weekend.
Yeah, I've ridden with police on this night. The night before Thanksgiving, police tell me it rivals New Year's Eve with the amount of
Right.
people that are out.
Yeah, even
And then,
more, I mean, people are traveling
yes,
all over the place. So it's a big night for
yep,
college kids who are home and stuff like that. So just be careful. Know the police are out. There's so many options these days for Uber and Lyft and friends and stuff like that. So just be careful out there, be safe. And if you need us, we're available, and just try to set yourself up for success by taking Uber or Lyft. But if you need us, we're here.
All right, folks, it's attorney Stephanie Murphy. Stephanie, excellent job as always. Happy Thanksgiving, and we'll
John,
talk
you
to you again.
too. Thank you. Bye.
All right, folks, there it is, attorney Stephanie Murphy. You know, I also want to just mention to people that I realize now, as I refer to her as our legal expert, maybe I should just say she's our, I don't know, she's obviously an attorney. She's a practicing attorney. I say the element of, maybe I shouldn't say obviously, but she's an attorney. If you get into a jam, and then for those that are watching, we have the number on the screen, 401-228-8271. I refer to her as our legal expert because she is an expert on legal matters, but she is a practicing attorney. So maybe I should just say attorney Stephanie Murphy. If Felicia, I would call her, and it's a free consultation. Just mention the show. So, folks, if you get jammed up, we have it up, 401-228-8271. You can even say to her, you know, hey, I'm a friend of the show. I see you on the show, 228-8271, attorney Stephanie Murphy. Now, folks, I also just want to mention, I'm not going to get into this nonsense with the Pawtucket story. Though, yes, I didn't realize that. When I say legal expert and attorney Stephanie Murphy, and then I see that, is Stephanie is the lawyer. I think that's what that means. I don't know if Donald's related to, isn't that Brittany? Maybe a Brittany relation. But folks, the Rogers situation, there's a big meeting tonight, big meeting in Newport. I believe the school committee. I think it's a little ludicrous that they're doing the night before Thanksgiving, but they are. And that story, you know, it's an excuse me, it's another one of those stories that here's what I'm hearing from people. And I know people sometimes have difficulty with don't kill the messenger. But as far as the Newport story, the story that I am hearing from a relative of one of the players is they try to say that the special needs student was almost, they allowed him to be part of the team. They let him wear a uniform. I don't know if he would be on the sidelines, possibly, but that it was all done in fun and they treated him and he loved it and he's not upset about it. I don't know. I don't know enough about it. I don't know what to make of that, is what I should say. So maybe, but even I'll say this about Rogers. Let's, if I were to take that, you know, for what it's worth, they're saying that the special needs student who you see him being hit with the belt and everything else, he enjoyed being part of the team. What else did the aunt told me? He had sent some photos to someone. He wasn't upset by any of it. He's now really upset that the players, that he liked being with the football players and they let him wear a jersey. So, but what comes into play again, and where I think Dan McGowan has a good piece in this morning's Boston Globe, is there's so much anti-bullying in schools, which I don't have a problem with the anti-bullying. I don't. And you know, you'd hear about these various kids that they go, you know, high school for them is pure hell and what they had to go through. So I get that. But there seems to be this notion that bullying is not okay, except it's okay in the locker room of the football team or the soccer team or the hockey team or the basketball team or the wrestling team. I think Dan McGowan of the Boston Globe is onto something, that there's a number, the number's higher than I thought, of kids that are being suspended. You know, I agree with him. There's no benefit to this business of, there's no other way to call it but the hazing. And it's done so much damage in fraternities and sororities. Kids have lost their life on a college campus. They make them drink a lot of alcohol. They had that kid, they made him drink a pint of brandy, and then he was in the trunk of a car, like this ridiculous stuff. And the stuff on the teams. But what I come down to, two couple different things about this. Number one, what is the purpose when they say we're going to have team captains? What is that about? Well, like the team captains should not be, and they get to instigate the hazing, so to speak. And it's not. It's certainly not a Rhode Island thing. It's not even a high school thing. You hear that Wes Welker tells the story that when Aaron Hernandez was a rookie on the Patriots, he went to do something to him, and Aaron Hernandez jumped at him like, gang mentality. We saw how that played out. So of where that can come from. But I think it is something. What I'm trying to say is I agree with Dan McGowan. It should be wiped out. There should be zero tolerance. Where this runs into a problem is if you have bullying in a school, you have bullying. If you take a regular student and they threaten that they're going to toss the student out of school for bullying someone, with sports and fraternities, it's called hazing, but normally it's bullying. If they were going to do that to a junior or a senior, well, I don't think anyone would care. Where suddenly people care is because it's one of the hockey players, or it's one of the better football players, or it's, in this case, it's members of the football team. And these kids aren't even seniors, by the way, because they're 16. So I agree with it. Like, why is it allowed? And it's totally unnecessary. And I think it should be wiped out. Dan McGowan of the Boston Globe is saying they should say that they're going to end the program. A lot of people would be upset by that. I want to come back to what is the purpose of this year? We have, just as an example, 4 senior captains. And what's involved in that? It sure sounds to me as though it should be that part of being, quote, a captain is to enforce that there's none of this. Because it doesn't help the team on the field. It doesn't improve the team. In the film A Few Good Men, which was also a big play, they have the person on the stand who was saying he dropped his rifle. They were doing a drill, and he didn't use what he's supposed to make sure that you don't drop your rifle. And you're supposed to put something on your hands to make sure that even if you sweat. And that night, he got a code red. They put something over his head, and they all punched him, and he never dropped his rifle again. So, and then we know what happened to Private Santiago. But with a sports team, there's things that somebody fumbles, and then they make them carry the football around for the week. There's things that could be implemented on a team to make sure that they don't do something that impacts the team. But this stuff is just basic nonsense. There's nothing accomplished here. Even Smithfield, as much as in Smithfield that they're trying to argue that it's just they try to argue basically it's kind of tradition that whoever goes to use this bathroom and they block them in and then they spray things, but that's not improving anything. That's just stupid behavior. Throwing ice on him, spraying Lysol on him. That's not improving anything. That's not making sure that someone doesn't travel. That's not making sure that someone doesn't fumble. That's not making sure that someone doesn't perform the drill better. That's just complete foolishness. So as much as, that sounds very serious as far as that they would end a program, meaning, next year there would be no Smithfield football program. But it is time to break tradition. And What's been missing from all this, and again, I want to give credit to Dan McGowan of the Boston Globe that wrote the column about it, excuse me. What's missing of this is the Interscholastic League of weighing in. Clearly, the superintendent in Smithfield did not handle the situation. Clearly, the principal and superintendent in Newport with Rogers is taking it far more seriously. In Rogers, they're being arrested. Smithfield, they haven't been arrested. Not yet. But I agree with him with that. Well, folks, thank you for tuning in. Happy Thanksgiving. One and all, if you are listening to the radio, stay tuned for the 2 o'clock news. Don't forget to check the website. We have an update coming on Central Falls. Huge one, as a matter of fact.